They will participate in this, camps, events, and programs, and they can do it, every now and then. And then eventually, some people will kind of like it so much that they will want to stay long term. The principal has certain job to do, and they have a lot of pains. And the chance that one of the principals in one of the schools will suddenly realize that I could automate this with software is very low. It's very low chance. But the good bundling, where you pick one user and you satisfy all the user's needs.
Hello everyone, my name is Maciej Nowak and welcome to the Awesome to Know podcast, where we discuss all things related to building a great website. In today's episode, we dive deep with indie maker John Rush, who's been championing independent product development with a portfolio of 24 projects. We explore his ambitious village project, a planned community designed specifically for indie creators, a place where innovation thrives beyond the digital space. John shares his unique philosophy on tackling challenges, from managing legal hurdles in Portugal to his iterative approach of building out of pain. We also discuss building in public, the role of AI in SaaS, and why specializing in niche tools can be a competitive advantage. Join us for insights on indie entrepreneurship, tackling real world obstacles, and creating solutions that resonate. If you don't want to miss new episodes and keep learning about WordPress, subscribe to Osom to Know newsletter at osomstudio.com/newsletter. This is osomstudio.com/newsletter. If you watch this on YouTube, give us a thumb and subscribe to the channel. This means a world to us. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with John Rush.
Hey everyone, it's good to have you here. We're glad you decided to tune in for this episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.
Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, all good. I'm ready for this chat.
Great. I will start with one of your recent projects. I want to ask, how is the village project progressing? And for our listeners, I will want to know how it all started, but now I want to know how it's going.
Well, it is way more difficult to progress on physical projects compared to digital. So we underappreciate how easy it is to run online business and directories and SaaS tools compared to offline, the real world stuff. So now I'm still in the process of looking for land and figuring out the permissions and how to build stuff and the legal parts and if I can actually build the things I want to build, because I'm looking for Portugal, and in Portugal the laws are quite strict on what you can build. But just recently they changed the laws and it's easier to build stuff than it was like just a year ago. So I'm just researching all this stuff now and still in the process of figuring out the location, the land, and the size of the project. So it's not that much progress yet.
All right. So, mapping this into a digital world, you are still like figuring out how to start, because you are you want to do that, but you are stuck with legal aspects. You can't progress with the whole idea, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sad about that. It's just I because I have things to do and things are going slow on that side, but they are still moving forward, and I do other stuff while waiting for that stuff. So it's that's the beauty of having many projects.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever one project is kind of moving slow and there is nothing you can do to speed that up, and if there was only one project you have, you would be sad. But in my case, I think that's a great time to focus on some other projects I have.
Perfect. So, can you tell us more about that project, that physical project? You run 24 projects, digital projects, and this one is physical. So, I'm very curious how you came up with the idea. And for our listeners, maybe who don't know about that village project, can you introduce us to your vision for that village?
Yeah, so I think the indie maker world is growing, and it's growing really fast. And it soon will be so big that I think the indie making way will be the default way of building startups, and people will turn into VC path farther along the road. And I think there's one problem with indie maker world is that all indie makers or most are really lonely. because we don't have an office, we don't have partners, we don't have team. Even if we have, usually it's remote. So, and we don't go to conferences, and we don't do all the other stuff, that the events that's backed founders do. That's why I think the loneliness is a problem, and it will just keep growing. And I thought, like, there is no there's no capital of indie making. Like, we know the capital of VC backed world, which is Silicon Valley, and we know YC as the place where everyone wants to go in. And then we have Web Summit and TechCrunch Disrupt. Like, so everything is kind of, all the rules are there, and we know what to do and we know what to strive for. But in the maker world, there's only one thing that unites everyone, is product hunt. But otherwise, everybody's on their own, and there's Twitter as well, but still it's just online. So I think having a physical place, not just in one location. Eventually, I want to have a lot of locations, but start with one. Having the physical place where people kind of all know that this is the place where you can go if you want to, hang out with other people, and also this is the place where you can have, education, you can have acceleration, you can learn stuff from others, and things like that. That place doesn't exist, and I want that place to exist. So if someone else has built that, I would be just happy and join them. But nobody's building that, and I feel like I'm probably in a good position to be the one who builds.
Mhm. And this is the idea behind why. So this is the why you are doing this, and what is that you are building. Like you mentioned, you need to buy the land. So
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
how this is going to materialize?
yeah. So I want to buy land of a large size, where I want to build several types of properties. So one is the long-term property where people can stay up to 6 months, and there will be few of them. And then there is short term where people can stay up to 30 days. And then I want to run the events there, mostly like an incubation events. So I want to have an incubation for SaaS, incubation for directories, incubation for other type of business that indie makers can do. And it will all start, and the first form of this will be like a place for education. So it will be kind of like a campus where you can study, or you can learn with others, with good kind of teachers, how to do stuff. For example, we'll have any like a program for growth or program for SEO, and then people who run businesses can come and just go through that program and improve their SEO for their product, for example. Because I want the place to be busy. I don't want the place to be like relaxed where people just come and do yoga and stuff, because that's there are a lot of places like that for that. And my place will be mostly for people who want to come and do progress on their projects. And I think when you have people doing progress next to you, it's much easier to do progress yourself too, because it's motivating. And I've been through the startup incubators many times, and there's really good vibe. Everybody's working hard, and people share ideas, people help each other, and even some people form teams. So that will be the start. Like the way it will look, it will be like a place with bedrooms, like very small bedrooms per person, and then there will be uh, everything will be managed, like all the food. Like you will not have your own kitchen, because that's kind of waste of place and resource. If you come for 30 days, that's not needed. So it'll be like a nice hotel, basically, with a really large co-working place that has meeting rooms and special rooms for different workshops. And there will be program, and every morning it starts, and ends at the night. And then on the weekend, people just party and drink or play sports or whatever. So that will be also organized. So I want to organize the whole thing, both the work part and the leisure, so that you don't have to really spend hours researching where to go, where to eat, all this stuff. I don't want this to be like a tourism thing. I want this to be like a program. You come from day one, and to day 30, everything is known. There's a clear program for every hour you have.
Wow, it's like very strict. It's because when I was thinking about that before our conversation, I was thinking this is going to be like a hotel where you um, where you go, you check in, you spend time, you do your work, and then you leave, and someone else coming for your place, or rather, more on a, let's say, ownership basis, where you when you have a skin in the game, in a sense, you buy something, you buy your room, you buy your flat, you stay there for living, to live there. Because I was curious, is it going to be like you move in as a citizen and you join the village as a villager, and you stay like not forever but for years, or on a hotel basis where you stay for much shorter. Now I get it, and it sounds like a camp where every part of your day is really planned, and your focus and like your job there is to maximize the outcome of that visit, right? Like,
Exactly. But there will be some mix. So I had this picture on Twitter where it's like three circles. So the outside circle is the long-term properties where you can actually own that, or you can long-term rent, or you can even buy that and own it. And that part is totally private. It has own entrance, and you're basically having access to the inside, but also your kind of own backyard is your own. Like nobody has access there, because I think for long-term residents, they want to have 100% privacy. Like not, they don't want to share stuff like in spaces unless they want. And if they want, they go inside, and the inner circle will be a short-term stay. There will be like a camp with the events, with the programs, etc. And I think the natural way for people to look at this is that people will be first visiting the short-term part. They will participate in this camps, events, and programs, and they can do it every now and then eventually some people will kind of like it so much that they will want to stay long term, or medium term, like 6 months, and those people can rent the outside circle housing and stay there for longer term, and then kind of visit all the programs once in a while. And some of them eventually will think that they like this all so much that they want to actually invest and buy the property they live in, and they can buy the property they live in. And when they buy it, it's basically appreciating in the price, and eventually they can get citizenship if it's in Portugal after 5 years. So basically you can turn from this kind of temporary mode into more like permanent mode, and you can even have your family and children there, because I have family and children, and I want to make it suitable. So there will be school for children. There will be all kind of things you need for having not just dudes there, but more like adults.
yeah, yeah. No, don't you worry that this is sounding a little bit too utopian to make?
I think it would be utopian if it was a community. Like I seen communities where there is no proper ownership, where everybody comes in, there is no system, there's no hierarchy, and people do stuff because they want to do stuff, and if they don't want, they don't do, and things like that. In my case, it will be very different. It will be more down to the earth. So the inner part will be just like any camp, that slash hotel, that slash an incubator and conference room, right? So that part is it exists.
Yeah,
There
no
are a lot of
brainer.
places
Like,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah, and then the outside part where you can actually stay for years. The idea there is that it's optional. I think only 1 out of 100 will be interested in that, and even they will buy it and they will own it. It's not like they own in exchange for them working on something, because that's difficult. Like it's kind of a socialism, right? So I want this to be truly capitalistic. So people buy the property just like they would buy anywhere else. They stay there in 1 year or 2 years. They get tired of being outside of the big town. Maybe they sell it, or their children grown up and they want to go to schools, and they leave, and somebody else moves in, right? Who has smaller children, for example. Most likely that will be the case. Like people with smaller children will like it more because it's easier. But if you have bigger children, like 10 years or old, they want to have busy life, and they will move out. They will sell. Right? That's why it would be utopian if I did it in a way that the whole place is owned by everyone, and then like
That would be
everyone
dystopian, maybe.
supposed, yeah, and everyone's supposed to do something, like a family.
Yeah, shifts.
And I don't believe in that. I've seen a lot of communities trying that, and people, like Mad Max, not Mad Max, Burning Man works because it's very short. But once you make it longer, that people who don't know each other have to collaborate for a year, they're going to kill each other at the end. That will be the end of the story, right? Or they will hate each other. So that's why I want to make it easy to understand the rules. So you own the property, it's yours. You do whatever you want. And also, if you want to use something, like you want to go to the event, you pay. You don't get it just because you're part of something. Everything costs money there.
Mm.
Everything.
Yeah, that's super interesting. How is like, and it's a bit of a long, let's say, you are at this stage where you are looking for land. So we are looking at some, some time, right? It's not going to happen, next month or maybe, or not even this year. So I'm curious how this will develop. Whereas, you mentioned this is so much harder with physical projects than with digital ones. And we don't appreciate how is it with digital. Whereas, I have a feeling that people tend to think that, okay, digital is so difficult. Let's sell stuff we buy cheaper, so sell it more, with higher prices, right? So this is different one because this is, like but that commerce, right? Whereas you are building, it's totally different thing when you are building where versus you are, in a commerce business.
Yeah, it is way more difficult also because all the regulations and your you have to go through all that legally. Otherwise, you have a legal structure. But I think in my case, like it will take time for me to promote it. It will take time for me to explain the world what this is. And while I do this, my audience is growing on digital products, and those people are the people who will be interested in this. That's why it is even better that I don't have it right now, because maybe having it done in a year or two will be better, because the people will be kind of more ready for this, and I will have more people who already kind of heard it about this for many times, and they have some picture of this in their head. I think during the next year I will buy the land and start construction, and the year after we will have our first MVP kind of ready. So basically, it's 2 years from now when I expect to host the first group there.
Yeah, so this is like, when I'm looking at this from a construction management where you have a building for like for tenants, like apartment block built
Yeah,
within up to 3 years, right? This is like 2 to 3 years. This is the cycle,
yeah,
for the decision until the keys are handed over. So it's like very quick, but then these guys are doing this, building after building after building, all set up the one city,
yeah,
all is very, repetitive. Whereas you are, I think I remember when you were considering even the country, you were considering Portugal, Turkey, and one more country,
yeah.
Thailand. Was it Thailand?
I was actually just considering these two,
All right. Okay.
and many others, but these
All right.
two were kind of the top of my list.
Yeah. So it's like,
And I've tried that already. So I've tried it in Turkey, and I'm trying now just small projects just to practice. So I'm like this summer I'm building one building that I want to practice on, and that's interesting thing as well. Like the goal of the project isn't just to build the place somehow and then run this whole thing. The process of building is part of the project too, because I want to slowly start doing more of non-tech projects, non-digital projects, and one of them is how to build effectively, because right now it takes forever to build something, and then maintenance is expensive, and if something breaks you have to break the whole wall to change the pipe, etc. So I actually want to build it in some cool way, that's not just using bricks, right? That's something more, modern, and I want that whole process to be a case study and something I do in public with others and have a lot of innovation within. And then the step number two after we build the first village is to build more villages in other countries. Right? So the phase two is that we build more villages within Portugal, few more, and that's phase three is that we build it in every city in the world, and we connect them together as a kind of network, and then the whole new thing opens up in that case. And to do all that, we have to develop the new product, which is how to build stuff in an efficient way.
Mhm. Like
And
a
that
franchise. Um,
exactly. And if you look at the things I do, like for example, I was growing my one product with SEO, and then I learned SEO and I learned how to do it really fast with little effort and get high result. And I'm not that good at it, but I don't have to be because I don't need that much out of that. I just need a few small things. And then I built a product out of this process, right? And now I have these products, and those products are really good, and they help other founders. And I think same thing while building this village, I will, like a side effect of this is that we will build multiple products around how to build stuff, how to furnish, how to put furniture, how to connect stuff together, how to deal with the regulations. Right? Because right now the process is very difficult, but I want to build a tool or a service that will let anyone in Portugal to actually go through this process in a very simple way over the website, with just clicks. So, because it can all be partly, automated, and you have all the laws and you have AI, and it can help you, so you can avoid paying a lot of money to lawyers and other people. Right? So there are a lot of products I want to create on the way, and that's kind of my whole credo. Like whenever come up with ideas, I never come up with ideas randomly. I only can come up with ideas out of my own pain, and I will create a lot of pain while building this product. And then once it's launched, there will be new pain, like the entertainment, how to entertain people, how to run the meeting rooms, right? How to run the incubation process, how to grow our food, how to do the transport. And all this will result into more products and more products.
I like this approach because, like, I wasn't thinking about that part. I was thinking when I learned about your village project. I was thinking about, okay, what's the end goal? Now I'm thinking about the way, like Ryan Holiday
Exactly,
has
exactly.
this book, The Obstacle is the Way, and runners have the way more important than the goal. Can translate
Yeah,
this
there is no
directly.
goal. There is no
Yeah,
goal.
yeah.
The
So that
process is the goal.
yes. So the village is like the MVP of the process that you are coming up. Novel process, let's say. You mentioned the materials. I think this is like on one hand very risky because doing something different than what's the usual way of doing stuff. On the other hand, this can lead to so much pain, and like I'm looking at this from the perspective that you are seeking the pain so that you can address that pain with a product that will alleviate that pain, like if I get
Yeah,
this right.
yeah, yeah. And to address your concern about the risk, there's not much risk when you solve your own pain, because unless you're not a normal human, your pain is shared. Like there is no pain that only you as a human have in the whole world. Right? There are other people who will have and experience the same pain. That's why I think a worst case scenario that we solve our own pain and we benefit ourselves, and that's good. So we benefit, right? And then better scenario is that we benefit ourselves, and then others say we want to benefit ourselves the same way. Can we use the same thing that you use for your own benefit? And if you look at all the things I do with the SaaS tools and directories, like once I switch to only build out of your own pain, once I switch to this process, nothing really failed after that. Like it's strange. Like things supposed to fail most of the time, and I've been failing most of the time before I switched to this process. Like, but now since that like last year and a half, everything I launched worked out because nothing I launch comes out of my hypothesis or my fantasy or whatever. It just comes out of my own need. So I build for myself always, and then I use it for myself, and I iterate with myself until I'm happy. And once I'm happy, I'll launch for the rest, and it just works every single time. And I have a guess that it will keep working every single time because there is no reason for it not to work as long as I'm happy with the product myself.
Mhm. Yeah, so I wanted to smoothly transition to, because this is your physical product, but this is on like the tip of the iceberg with all of those digital products. And I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, how many nights this overnight success took?
Well, 20 years.
20 years.
So I yeah, I started like in 2004 or even before that, 2001, when I was a kid, and I did different kind of stuff. But my first technological or internet business I started in 2004, and it went really well at the start. Like the interesting part is that my first years were really good. Almost nothing failed because in my first years, I didn't really want to do business. It just happened because there was something that pushed me to that. Like for example, I was just helping out my friend with his schoolwork with the in the university, and then his friend asked me, "Can I help out him too?" And I'm like, I don't know you, so you have to pay because this is my friend. I help him for free, but I have no idea who you are, and I have other things to do. I want to play football, so if you want me to not play football and do your work, just pay me. And he paid me, and then his friend paid me, and a friend of a friend, a friend of a friend. So it's like a lot of people came to me over time, and then I realized that I have to actually, hire people to help me because it's a lot of work and I'm not doing that all by myself. And then eventually I built a marketplace that was just connecting the one party with the other party. And at the beginning I had no plan for that. I didn't really think like I will build a business. It just happened. I didn't understand how it happened. It just happened. And that's how I built all my first businesses. And they went really well. I sold this one, and then the others were making money. And then when I went into like proper startup world, I moved to an incubator in Oslo, and there were like VCs there, and we started building like VC backed startups. And the whole thing changed because now my brain was different. I was thinking like I have to come up with idea. I have to come up with idea that will be funded that I can build later. And every single idea failed. Like the next 7 years, all ideas I came up with, and we raised money for them from investors, and we got grants from the government and everything, and we got media talking about us. We won conferences, but all those projects failed because the origin of those ideas was totally wrong. Like the ideas came up just inside of my head without me having that pain, just by me trying to imagine what if that kind of group had this problem, and what if they had this solution and they would be happy, and it sounded like true, right? So that was like a long period, like from 2011 to 2022. For 11 years I did that stuff, and it just all failed. Maybe like 99% failure rate. There's only like two projects survived, the rest failed. And then I realized that I have to kind of go back to the roots, and I have to go back to the idea that ideas should come not from my head, but from something outside, from some pain, either my own pain or somebody else's pain, but not just my imagination. And I started doing that, and things went differently, and nothing has failed since then.
But I'm thinking about that, and isn't it look like everyone thinks they are solving a pain with their idea? Didn't you think that it was real pain, the ideas for those startups within that incubation phase? Didn't you think that this is also a pain that you have a real solution to?
There's some pain in every solution you can imagine, right? You can imagine that there's some pain, and you will solve the pain. But there's big difference between you imagining somebody else pain. Uh, f- for example, you can say like, look, there are taxi drivers. What if they had an app that would help them find place to eat? They're hungry. They could find places to eat. Right? It sounds like good app, right? But in fact, you are not a taxi driver, so you have no idea how serious is that pain, because it has to be important, and you have to be willing to actually download the app or pay for something. And often, just pain and all alone doesn't, solve the problem. You have to have strong enough pain, and you have to have strong enough motivation to solve the pain. And you can only evaluate your own motivation and pain. You can't evaluate someone else. And if you ask someone, like, people say, go to people and ask, it doesn't work, because people can't really give you good answers. They will say, yeah, I have the pain. And you ask, would you use the app? They will say, yeah, maybe. What does that mean, right? If they say, yeah, maybe, uh, maybe they're just not trying to be not rude.
Sorry for cutting you off, but there's that book, The Mom Test, which treats exactly about this. If you go to your friends and ask, "Will you use that app?" Yes, I will. Is it good? Yes,
Yeah,
it's excellent. And he will learn nothing, exactly nothing. And the whole art
exactly, exactly.
of asking right questions to drive the conclusions, not ask directly about the conclusions. So I read that book, and it was astonishingly like fresh to think how wrong most of the time people ask for feedback about their products.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done that mistake many times, and it just never worked. But people still keep telling that it works. I even know people who just came up with ideas by interviewing other people and asking for their pains. But uh, it's very difficult. Like, I think doing something that you're not a user of that thing yourself, it may work. But I think if it works, it's kind of very strong luck. But if you want to have less luck and more predictability, go for things you have your own pain for. And people say, I don't have pains. And the reason you don't have pains is that you do nothing. Like, once you do something or whatever, you get a lot of pain. Like, for example, like in this case, if I'm building the Endemaker village, I will have a lot of pain to solve on the way. But you can do smaller things too. You can even do some hobby, like, for example, go play football, for example, and then you will start having pain on finding teammates or finding places to play. So if you're active in the world, the pain appears.
But again, but I have a friend who had the pain of finding teammates for football plays, and because he was an expat, he is an expat, and he started a startup community
Yeah,
platform for finding teammates. I don't know what's the state of that, but like exactly, you nailed it, because that pain must be shared, worldwide, with that finding teammates, and especially if you are, not local. So yeah, I'm sorry for cutting you off. I had to make this remark because this
it
is
is. It is a good point. So I would add this: in the consumer apps, even if you have the pain, it doesn't mean you can execute on it. So the pain exists. Someone in the world one day will make that app that will solve this pain. 100%. Is it you or not? That's the question. Most likely it's not you, because that's just the statistics, right? And especially on this topic, I was the guy who was looking for teammates, and I even tried building the app. In Turkey, it's called Eat Pray Football. So I was partnering with a girl, and we built the app, the real app, and it worked, and it still works here in Istanbul. And but it didn't grow into a huge app. You can Google. It's called Eat Pray Football. And then when I was living in London, they had this app called Footy Addict, which is huge. It has like hundreds or thousands of people playing in it. So that's really a huge success, right? So he managed to grow the same thing really, really big, right? So I think For B2C world, for consumer apps, if you have pain, then it's real. Others also have it. But if you can execute on that pain or not, that's a question because it's very difficult. But in B2B world, things are much easier because in B2B world, if you have pain in your work, at your work, then usually it's much easier to explain other people your product and they will see their pain and map it. And also, since it's work and people try to optimize their work, they try to spend less time and do more because the companies are trying to compete, and they have way higher motivation to try new things. Because if you took a regular guy, regular human, for us it's difficult to change our habits, while for employed people, they don't decide whether they want to change habits or not. They don't decide that. Their boss says that, we have to do this thing faster. Figure out. Or the boss says, I saw this tool and it makes this thing faster. Start using it. They will not ask if you want or not.
In general, I agree, but then there's that famous, not meme, but like let's say meme, with that picture taken from above of a lawn with a pavement, and there's that corner cut with people walking and cutting the corner, and there's that path, sand path. I don't know how to put it, but there is that pavement around the corner, and people started to cut the corner, and like UX, like UI
Yeah,
versus UX,
I,
right?
I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So even though you will make employees and we want to force behavior change, there will be some degree of cutting the corners, and if you hit certain threshold with how unfit this is, you won't benefit from that. So like I agree in principle, but not totally. It has to be a good product, otherwise even superior decision won't make that behavior change
yeah,
happen.
you're right. But I didn't say that you have guaranteed outcome of success in B2B, but the difference is huge. So in B2C, the chance to actually successfully solve your pain by building an app or a website or something is nearly zero. It's so low that you can say it's zero. Like some people will make it, but the winner takes it all. Like if you make it, then you take the whole world with it, like Airbnb or Meetup.com or all Uber, right? But there's only one Airbnb, right, for the whole world. And there are so many other guys who tried out different stuff and they never made it. But if you look at the B2B world, in B2B world, there is more fragmentation of pain because there are more jobs and there are like hundreds or thousands of jobs in the world. And every job has hundreds of pains. So it's large variety. And because it's large variety, most of these paints don't have big markets. So even if you build successful product there, you will not make billions. Because of that, there's not much competition because people don't want to target something where there is not that much money to be made. Right? And in some cases, it's such a small pain for a small group that nobody wants to target it because you can make, let's say, 1 million a year on that, and that's too little for a startup kind of. And that's why if you enter, there's smaller competition and there are fewer alternatives for the users there. Where with B2C, there is like abundance of alternatives, and there are people all over the world with huge funding trying to solve all the pains because we share the same pains. Almost all of us share same consumer pains. Very few things are custom to certain groups, but most are the same. That's why everybody knows them, and all the smartest people in the world are able to come up with those ideas because they're also humans. Whether with B2B, imagine a certain profession that's kind of small, and people who do that job are not entrepreneurial. And then who will come up with the idea for that group? They will never come up because they're not entrepreneurial, right? For example, good example here is even jobs like in schools, like in a school you have a principal, for example, and the principal has certain job to do and they have a lot of pains, and the chance that one of the principals in one of the schools will suddenly realize that I could automate this with software is very low. It's very low chance. That's why if suddenly you're the principal who came up with such idea because it's your own pain, the chance that you're the only one in the world who is trying to solve this right now is really high. Right?
Mhm. I'm thinking also about like this concept that if this is for B2B, which means ease of like simplification of processes or reducing time, number of man operations and so on. So basically, we are talking about the efficiency. The tools
Yeah.
are bringing the efficiency. Wouldn't it converge into one set of like most efficient frameworks, tools, platforms? You know what I mean? That it should be the case where not more and more tools are built, but rather less and less, because everything converges to one ideal way of doing things. It's very like a philosophical
That's
question.
very good. That's a very good question. Very good question. And the answer here is that we change our habits at work way faster than we change our habits at real life. For example, the adoption of things at work happens way faster than in real life. Like we have robots at work, we don't have robots at the kitchen, right? But we have robots making the cars. So that's why the workplace is progressing so fast that everything that has been built today will be obsolete in 5 years. And usually, the people who build stuff that gets big, they don't have really high incentives to innovate because they own the market they're going to reach, etc. That's why if you look at the B2B vendors and providers, they have very short life. Like B2C has very long life. Like Instagram started, Twitter started, long time ago, Gmail, like and they're still running. In B2B world, products start and in 3 years they might go big or they might start dying because the way they solve the problem is not relevant anymore. Now you have a new way of solving the problem. And just because the B2B world consists of tools, like tools are used to use the other tools, etc. Like all the tools are connected to each other. So once any part of this tool set is being replaced by new tools, then the other tools also have to be replaced, and everything has to be replaced.
Ripple
And
effects.
yeah, the ripple effect, and that's why we see the opposite of what you just said. That the big players, unless we talk about governments and huge corporations, where people don't seek best product, but they seek just a contract, and it runs for very long, and they just use some old stuff just because they don't care. They are paid by taxpayers. But if you take any normal world business, every single day they're looking around and thinking, can I replace all my tools with new tools so that I'm more efficient?
Because there's that pressure of being efficient, because
It's
you have to
capitalism. You have to win.
you have to not only work but to run to keep to keep the place you are at, right? And you
Exactly,
have to run
exactly.
faster and faster to move ahead of your competition, slowly and slowly.
Yeah, you have to become more productive every year, and if you don't, then your margins getting worse, and then somebody else comes into the game with better margins, and they just take the market, and you go bankrupt, and that happens all the time.
Incentives are bigger in B2B because they are driven by money, basically, and fear of losing that money, or
There is more
greed.
money,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's less taste. For example, in a consumer world, taste means a lot, and if we are used to something, we keep using it just because we are used to it and we like it, not because it's the best. And maybe there's something better out available, but we will not switch because we are used to it. And you can have a lot of examples for that. That's why the adoption of things in B2C world is so slow. Like practically things are like, if you we had COVID, and then people started ordering delivery of things because there was no other choice. But before that, that whole delivery thing was growing really slow. Like for example, grocery delivery. People did delivery for tools and products, but not for grocery. Why? And now grocery is also being delivered almost everywhere. People don't go to grocery shops as much as they did in before. So, but if you look at the business, if today they hear about something that makes it easier to order, let's say, food for people or whatever, they will make decisions here and now, even if nobody wants, even if nobody's willing to change their habit, because decision is made by the managers who have to maximize the profits, and they have no hard feelings, they have no attachment to the old.
Since we are talking about that efficiency, what's your take on the AI bots, implementation of AI, which promises huge gains? And I know you covered this, like briefly touched upon this on your one of your Twitter comments on AI tweets. So I'm curious now, are you seeing that?
I think we have very slow progress with actual usage of AI within tools. In reality, if you look at the tools you use daily, very few of them utilize AI. Very few of them, almost none. So, which is surprising because we thought that by this time every single tool in the world will be powered by AI, will have some AI stuff within it, and will be kind of smart. And right now, nothing is really smart yet. But we have huge success for GPT, for ChatGPT, for, for chatbots basically. And if you look at the usage, like most of the world usage of AI comes to two things. One is ChatGPT, and the other is generating either code or text. And it's just okay. We also have the image generation as third, but we don't have it within actual workflows, which is interesting. And I think we are pretty much nowhere with AI from that standpoint. So the chats are strong, but the SaaS tools don't use AI, and I don't see that accelerating. That's why I think we are just at the start. We're not even in the middle, not at the end. We're just at the start. And it seems like people need a lot more time to figure out how to actually integrate AI into workflows so that it's part of the workflow. Because right now, AI only works as a mentor on the side, right? That kind of helps you, but not as a part of workflow, because we don't know how to do it in terms of UX. It's not easy. And then the other thing that we have very few agents. By agents, I mean the AI tools which can do everything, just like employees do. Like you mentioned, Klarna and support. I haven't seen the results of it, but so far I haven't found any product where I talked to their chat that had AI in it, and I got the answer that satisfied me.
I have one
Like,
case. I have one case here. I was in Vienna on a conference, and I we picked a place, and it turned out there's no reception, and we had the wrong room. And what do you do then? First of all, there was and this was done through Booking, and there was an agent connected to Booking.com chat, so it wasn't even a native solution. It was just integration with Booking.com, and I had every answer right. So I was able to check in. I was able to ask questions. Ask a ton of stuff. Obviously, the chat couldn't replace my room, so I had to get a connection to human being. But I was astonished at the speed of delivering that information. It was instant, and this was correct. So this is the first time I came across such a good results, because most of the time the chat agents most of the time are just stupid. You don't get better results this way. You get most of the time inferior results, but this, I was blown away by. This is the first case I noticed that.
yeah, I mean, they take the risk, right? Because it's you never know whether it can say something that will be totally bad, and then you'll make a screenshot of that and humiliate them publicly. Right? That's why I saw huge backlash, and I saw that a lot of the companies have removed their chats from the support, or they keep it there, but it's supervised by humans. And that's why I think it's not reliable enough so that you can trust it that way. But I think that's the challenge to overcome, and anyone who can overcome that challenge in any of the applications of AI and make it reliable, they will win big. For example, even in articles, like if you create articles for blogs with AI, there is huge chance it will hallucinate and create non-existent links and non-existent facts, right? And that's why people were very happy with it at the start, and now they're like saying that uh, it has a it all looks good, but when you fact check, half of it is not true. Right? But some people, like for example, with articles, I have one project called SEO Bot, where we did a lot of work on hallucination to remove them by googling things, by checking Wikipedia and other doing fact checking for every sentence, and it got so much better that it looks nearly like a human made now. Often you can't really say if it's human or not. Like at least it looks like human who use AI, right? So it doesn't, because the language of AI is too good and humans are not as good at writing. So that's what typically when humans write, you find not the errors, but some statistical mistakes or things like that. But here it's too perfect. That's why it's AI. But otherwise, it's really good quality. And I think, and it took us a year and a half to get there. Right? We thought we will be there after a week when we started. We thought here's an AI, and we just do that and this. We put the prompts, we chain the calls, we make the agent, and it just works. And then it didn't. It produced something that was cool on demo, but terrible at reality. And now, a year later, it looks all the same, but it doesn't lie, right? So the progress, it was just under there. Like for the user, it looks the same, but it doesn't lie anymore. And I think that's what we need in all other applications. And I think that's why a lot of the products not gave up, but they went into more deep tech mode to figure things out. They launched AI demos quickly 2 years ago. The world went bananas with that. They shared and they thought the world is ending, the jobs are gone. But then once everyone tried, they saw that it's not as good as on demos. And now all those companies went into the mode of actually building the reliable thing, and it takes years. And some of them are still doing that.
And I wanted to go back to a little bit through our conversation and ask you about one of your other products, which is the directory, let's say, SaaS tool for building directories. And in fact, this is a CMS, right? And we are coming from WordPress world, WordPress being massive, popular, customizable. So I wonder, why does the world need yet another CMS? And don't take this like aggressive, like, as an aggressive
Oh, it's a good
question.
question. It's a
Yeah,
good
but
question.
and I'm also referring to the fact that you since some time ago building on top of your own pain. So I'm curious, what was
Yeah.
the path to building yet another CMS?
Yeah. Good question. I think the more things the product can do, the harder it is to use the product, and the lower is the quality of the result. Right. So basically, if you're building a directory somewhere we can build everything, then it takes more time, the higher chance of mistakes, and in the outcome, you don't control the details because the tool itself was never knew that it will be used for directories. But once your tool is niched down and it knows that it's going to be used to build directories, then you can start making a lot of details within it, a lot of cases, a lot of hard coded little things, which will make the directory perfect. And then this builder can't build other things because it's tailored for directories. So that was my idea, that in the world of generically used tools like WordPress and Webflow and other things like that, uh, we lack more limited single-use builders for directories, for launchpads, for marketplaces, for things like that, because there's other problem here, which is even bigger problem, is that we have huge influx of new people into the maker world who don't have experience with anything. And for you and me, for people who use all the tools all our life, we can use any of those tools and can build anything we want, and it's roughly the same effort because we know how to use. If you know how to use the tool, even difficult tool is easy to use. But if you don't know how to use the tool, then you enter the tool and there are 100 buttons there. You need one, but you don't know which one. You don't even know that you need one button. Right? You know nothing. And then if you make a tool that does only a few things and the only button it has is the one that you have to press, then the newcomers can come in there and just use their intuition and walk through the steps and get the outcome they need. Right? And that's the reason I did it, so that I could let people do the stuff like it's in with iPhone, like without any training, without tutorials or guides. They just enter and they just produce something.
I want to comment, obviously not with my own words, but there is that saying that there are only two ways to make money. It's bundling and unbundling. I don't remember who said that, but with your tool, I think this is unbundling and cutting off everything apart from very limited use case. It's like very specialized tool to do only this particular thing, whereas other things are more on bundling together. You get more for the value of previous value, let's say, right? So the tool grows with more functionality. Roadmap means adding new features. The price doesn't change, but you keep the user base. Your approach is totally different. And maybe one more word of comment is that this goes into the trend that I observe on, for example, on Twitter, where there is, or maybe my bubble, where there are more and more tools which are very limited. For example, for analytics, more and more tools, just like very simplified analytic tools to analyze very small part of the website on server level, on user behavior, and so on.
Yeah, and I I happen to run one of those tools too.
All right.
Count visits, which does exactly that. It's just analytics for directories and for landing pages, for simple landing pages and directories. And the best thing about the tool is that because I know the use case of the tool, I can automate the onboarding. So, for example, if you have directory and you put there something like post hook or plausible, you will have to write code and do a lot of actions to handle and collect all the events you need, because they won't be collected out of the box, obviously, because that analytics doesn't know that you have directory. And my tool is made just for directories, right? Which means that if you put it there, it knows that it can only run within directory, so it will find the things and assign events and have them on the dashboard. So basically, it's zero configuration. You put it there and it shows exactly what needs to be shown and collects exactly what needs to be collected for directories. And that's the future, I think, is that people, like in old days, the business user was someone with a lot of productivity and a lot of time, and they were not really looking for simple ways. They were rather the opposite. They thought like job has to be difficult, so if the tool is difficult, it's a good tool. Like in old days, you would sell by number of features and you would show screenshots with a lot of buttons on the screen, right? And if you brought a tool that has a white background, no grays, no buttons, just smaller things, people will think it's too simple. I can't pay for this, right? But in today's world, what happened is that the modern business buyers are consumers. They're like their behavior is like in consumer world. And in the consumer world, people are spoiled, people are lazy, people don't want to learn, people don't want to think, and that's why they want things that are easy to use, and ideally they don't have to do anything. Things just happen out of the box. And in that kind of world, you have to unbundle, right? Because if you don't unbundle, then there's complexity. And sometimes it's the opposite. For example, the other example of bundling, like you get a very good quote with bundling. For example, if someone is building a directory and the directory builder can give you both directory and analytics in one, you're going to like it, right? Because it's easier. You don't have to go and search for an analytics tool and bring it in and connect it, right? And that's the example of bundling, where you bundle based on the job to be done. So basically, you bundle it for one user. So me as a user, I come in and the whole bundle suits me 100%. Like bad kind of bundling is when you have huge tool and you as a user you come in and only 5% of the tool makes sense to you, the rest is like not for you. It's like Microsoft products, for example. It's like a lot of stuff there. But the good bundling where you pick one user and you satisfy all the users needs, everything, and then it's all in one.
With Microsoft example, I'm thinking also about another concept, which is distribution. And there's that saying that obviously I read it on Twitter recently, but with there's that saying that the best product wins or best distribution. And this was the case. Someone covered that for Slack versus Teams, where Slack has so much,
Yeah, I saw it.
yeah, so much older product, more mature, and probably a little bit more stable. Whereas, if you have that huge user base, you bundle on one more, not feature, but one more solution into your like suite of tools and push it to everyone for free, basically. But then there's that bit of a mode, so that no one is doing that and like trying to create some cracks in that armor with their with their new product, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good and bad. So the good thing is that if you win distribution, doing good things, eventually you can use the audience you have to supply them with more stuff. And usually it starts well. So if you were the one who won the distribution initially, then you're good at products. So probably going to build good products again and supply to them. And the problem with this approach happens later when you become so big that you don't care as much and you can just supply people with any kind of products just because you have distribution. And people don't have a choice almost. So I think it's good and bad, but I don't think there's big problem with it because in long term, best products wins always. A good example is Microsoft and their operating system, and it was pushed to everyone for like decades, and people used it even if they didn't like it. But now Mac OS has won the market because it's a better product. So even this huge Microsoft with all their power couldn't keep that market for a long time. And I think Slack versus Teams, I think same thing here. Like eventually, if Slack is a better product, Slack will win. But I don't think Slack is a better product anymore because I left Slack for Discord, for example, because Slack became so slow on my phone. I just couldn't use it. So I think it is the market. The open market is a great thing. It has some moments of unfair stuff, but in the longer run, always things get really fair and best things win against not the best things.
Yeah, I like it. Although I hate Discord, but I totally get that. You as the user switch to another tool that is more convenient for you, because how much more can you do with Slack? With new interface getting clunky, for example. This is not something I like, but yeah. I'm curious when you think about building these products, and I'm thinking about small features that are an encapsulation of small features into in SaaS or in tools, in frameworks. I'm thinking also about, for example, plugins on top of WordPress. You have the WordPress as a platform and foundation. There is the pain you feel. You encapsulate that solution in a form of a plugin, and then you distribute this through WordPress.com. That plugin library. What would you recommend to plugin makers, indie makers building WordPress plugins, as like a good advice uh, when to someone who's listening to us as a developer, solo maker?
Yeah, I think being dependent on a platform is a dangerous thing because if platform syncs, you sync with the platform too, right? Which is a problem. But that's why I think you should distribute your plugins everywhere, not just on WordPress, because usually your key expertise is the UX of the plugin, the actual business logic, right? And the connection to the platform is not a big deal usually, and that's why you should have at least two platforms where you have your plugins. It has to be WordPress and something else, maybe Webflow, maybe Shopify, maybe somewhere else, or maybe you should try to make your plugin into little tool depending on what your plugin does. But now there's huge market for micro tools because SEO works really well for micro tools. If your tool does, if it's just like a thing that converts hours into minutes, for example, and in the old world it would be too small to release on its own. In new world it's not too small. You can actually buy a good domain and win a lot of SEO traffic for that thing. So I would try to diversify if I was building for one platform. And WordPress, a lot of people think WordPress is dying, but the reality is that WordPress is not dying. It is huge. It's just as huge as it was. That's why there is no big worry that it will collapse very soon. But at the same time, I wouldn't be worried as much about collapse rather than about the competition. So if there's a platform and it runs for a long time, the number of people who want to build for the platform keeps growing, and that's why probably eventually it's like at Spotify, like artists make almost nothing there. At the start, they made a lot of money and they were happy, and now they make nothing because you listen to a lot of different stuff and they get a little share. Same here. That's when I would actually look around for platforms which are new, where there are not so many people and there's high potential. And then if you're one of the first who built their plugin there, then you're going to grow with that platform. Like for example, Framer, like the people who made first Framer templates, the good ones, they're making tons of money because they just get dragged along with the wood successful Framer.
Yeah, it's like picking the winner. You have to know or have a hunch who's going to be a winner in that new landscape. I wanted to also to ask you about building in public, because you're one of those guys who shares a ton of stuff, secret sauce, and you're very transparent in your process. And then I observed that, mm, like, there not a hesitancy, but rather like an internal battle. Should I share my stuff? I get a lot of heat for that, or I get a lot of shadow banning because bot farms launch an attack under the tweet, so you get shadow banned. So I'm curious, is there, like, what's your stance on it now?
I have very strong opinion on this. I think everybody has to build in public. I think it's a must. Why? So number one, you get good trust from the market, both from your users, from your partners, from potential investors, employees, journalists. So basically, when you build in public, you simplify the process of attracting people of any sort. Right? Because when you don't build in public, then whenever you talk to someone, you have to tell them a lot about yourself. You have to convince them. You have to convince that it's true what you're saying, and etc. And I see nearly no downside of building in public. You mentioned the bots and the farms and the attacks. That happens very rare. And for that to happen even more rare, you should, like, usually people attack you if they're jealous or they think you're lying. So make sure you never write something that looks like a lie, even if it's true. Like, I have a lot of things I don't post because it's true, but I know people will think it's not true because it seems to be too good to be true, right?
Can you
And
share? Can you share something like that? It's not Twitter.
I mean,
It's a.
for example, like some revenue numbers on some of
All
the
right.
products, for example, and I feel like people will think that that's not true, or it can be some uh, things around numbers, basically, often. And that's why I try to share stuff in a way that it looks natural. It doesn't look too good. And when it's too good, I wait for it to spread out for longer, and then so it's more smooth.
All right.
Because some people will think you're lying, and some people will think you're not lying, but they will get really jealous, and both
Both
groups
bad.
will hurt you, right? So there's basically no group that will appreciate that, because it's you should make sure you don't brag too much and don't create this kind of thing. Uh, that's why I try to, when I build in public, when I just entered the build in public world, most people were sharing their numbers, revenues, and everything. And I realized that that's kind of not that interesting for people. And what can they learn? Okay, so you got 20K MRR. Cool, congrats. But what for me in it, right? I think build in public, the key thing you have to think is that if you ever post anything on the internet, always look at that from the eyes of the viewers. Do they get value or not? If there's just like a milestone you achieved, the only thing they get is jealousy, or they don't trust you, or they don't care. Like, there's no positive, really. Some few people get energized, like, you got money, I want to make money too, cool, bro, let's go. It's very few people, actually. It's very few people, because it's not natural for people to do that, because we are in a competition, all of us, with each other, right? And if someone is winning, it is often considered by your animal brain that you're losing. That's why don't try to share wins. Just share ways of getting somewhere, and how you did that, and all the actions you've done, and educate people on things you do. And it's good for you, because whenever you educate people on things you do, you educate yourself, because when you have to write down all the things you've done to get from A to B, usually for that you have to be collecting analytics, you have to be looking where you were and where you are now. So you get better just because you have to produce that kind of content, and the readers find it useful.
So my take on what you said just now is that it's again a process of building a product creates probably some pain points, which may be the inspiration for building new products, and the circle starts again, and so on, because we built on top of another, like these complemented themselves in a way. And if you take that to Twitter, let's say, and share that path, you have those moments of recollections with writing, because I tend to keep the journal now less, but I was writing every day for like for years, and it made me realize a lot of stuff happening. And with writing about the path, it's the process is finer, with you realizing what you are doing, more aware of what you are doing. Because it's a little bit of a long because I also want to understand, because this seems counterintuitive, with sharing a lot of your secret sauce with public, for the general public to be able to copy you, maybe in a field where you are competing. With very niche products, maybe this is not the case, but in more general terms, for example, I had a conversation on a podcast, an episode with Adam Robinson from retention.com. And from about a year ago, he started that building public, like running his profile in a very building public, very transparent way, saying everything how they came up with the numbers, and they have a very very big competition with their product. So I'm trying to understand, how this is benefiting not only from like review perspective, but this just seems counterintuitive to share your secrets.
Yeah. So basically, there are three groups of founders. So one group is the early founders, those who haven't done anything successful yet, and those who don't have any uh, extraordinary knowledge or skills yet, because you can't just have them; you have to earn them while doing, right. And then there's a other group who's running medium-sized business that's growing, and then there is a group of successful founders. So for the first group, it's safe to build in public because the chance that they know something that other people don't know is zero, right? With no offense. And then the second group that's growing their stuff, for them, the growth they get by building in public. By growth, I mean possible new hires, possible new investors, and media coverage outweighs the possible risks of their competitors stealing their ideas, which they share. There's some chance they will kind of copy something, but most things they can copy just by viewing the stuff as well. Like it's very few things that you can't see with your own eyes by looking at the website, the app, and registering yourself. And then the third group, the successful people, who are like who built something great. For them, uh,
Doesn't really
they
matter. They will get there
yeah
either way.
yeah for them doesn't matter because they are so good at that. So basically, there's no use case for actually being hurt from this. The intuition says there is, but if you actually break down the founders into three groups, you just see that it benefits everyone.
Yeah, the lizard brain has a say. Don't do that. Don't do that. Whereas it turns out you should
Brain
be doing
often
that, right?
makes Yeah, brain often makes mistakes. Actually, brain always makes mistakes for things where it tries to average something. But in real life, usually nothing is averaged. You're always within a group, within a stage, within a phase, right? You're not the average founder because every founder every founder doesn't exist. Founders is always somewhere in the journey, right? And your brain never thinks that way. Your brain gives you the average founder risk, and yeah, there's risk for average founder, but there's no risk for actual founder.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I really love that. John, thank you very much for the conversation. It was like one of those conversations where during which I learned a ton, and like um I want to say my viewport has changed. It broadened my perception of things. So I really appreciate that, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If you like what you've just heard, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. On the other hand, if you've got a question we haven't answered yet, feel free to reach out to us directly. Just go to osomstudio.com/contact. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.